I've worked in law enforcement for over 12 years. In that time, I've seen things most civilians never do and never should. But one particular night broke all the rules of what's real, logical, or safe. It started like any other graveyard shift. It was a cold October night in 2019. I was stationed at the North District substation when a 911 call came through the comms at exactly 2 to 7 a.m. The dispatcher's face looked unsettled. She waved me over and played the recording. "They're watching me. They live in the walls. Please." Then, silence. No address was spoken, but the call was traced, surprisingly, to an abandoned property, the Lockwood House. Now, let me tell you what most outsiders don't know. The Lockwood family disappeared in 2003. Father, mother, 2 kids, gone overnight. No signs of break-in, no forced exit. Their car was still in the garage. Their dishes were still in the sink. Only their family dog was found, curled up and dead in the basement corner weeks later. Dehydrated, starved, like it had been locked in with something it feared more than hunger. Locals began calling the place cursed. The town council had it sealed off. No electricity, no plumbing, but every few years, weird reports came in, lights flickering inside, shadows in windows, and untraceable phone calls. That night, I was with Officer Miguel Torres. He had just completed his 4th year. Good guy, brave, rational. We both figured it was squatters or kids playing pranks. We pulled up to the house at 2:50 a.m. The fog was unnaturally thick, almost oily, like smoke from wet wood. The moon above was full, but dim, like something was sucking the light from the sky. The Lockwood House stood at the edge of the woods like it had been carved out of a nightmare. Windows broken, shutters hanging, but the front door was wide open. I glanced at Torres. He was already putting his hand on his holster. "Let's make it quick," he muttered. We stepped inside. Immediately, the air changed, heavier, colder, and wrong, like breathing in dust soaked with rot. The wooden floor creaked under our boots. Our flashlights skimmed across peeling wallpaper, children's toys scattered, and family pictures still hanging crooked on the walls. Then we heard it, a voice upstairs, a woman crying, low, whispering sobs. We looked at each other, no hesitation. We headed up. The stairwell was steep and narrow. Something about it made my skin crawl. As we turned the corner on the landing, we both froze. At the end of the hallway was a mirror, tall, old, cracked. But in it, there was a reflection of something not in the hallway. A woman, pale, wearing a white gown, hair stringy and black, standing behind us. We turned, nothing there. I tried to brush it off. Just tricks of the light. Torres didn't answer. He was staring at the mirror, eyes wide. "She's still there," he whispered, and she was. The reflection didn't go away. We moved into the master bedroom. It was exactly like the photos from 2003, bed unmade, a child's drawing still taped to the closet door, and on the nightstand, a rotary phone, off the hook. Torres approached it slowly. "This is the phone that made the call." Then came the scratching from inside the walls, followed by a whisper, a long, dragging, hissing whisper that seemed to stretch through the whole house. We never left. The lights in our flashlights flickered. My radio let out static, then cut out entirely. Then the closet door swung open. Inside, just darkness and breathing. Torres moved closer. He whispered, "There's someone in there." Suddenly, a hand shot out from the darkness. Long, thin fingers with torn nails grabbed Torres's shoulder and pulled him inside the wall. Not into the closet, into the wall behind it. I screamed his name and reached in, but there was nothing but cold, solid wood. I smashed the drywall, fired 2 rounds into it. No blood, no cracks, just a wall. I backed up in shock and saw the mirror again. She was back, standing next to me in the reflection, not looking at me, just smiling. I ran, down the stairs, stumbling. The entire house was now alive with noise, creaking, whispering, voices from vents, the sound of a child giggling softly, followed by the unmistakable sound of chewing. Outside, the fog was even thicker. My cruiser looked old, rusted. The tires were gone, radio, dead. I wandered in the dark for what felt like minutes. They found me near the tree line. At 8:10 a.m., I had been missing for over 5 hours. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. My body cam, it stopped recording at exactly 2:37 a.m., the same time the call came in, the same time she called for help. And the last frame in the footage, it wasn't me or Torres. It was her, smiling, holding up the rotary phone. What happened after? Torres was declared missing in action. His body was never found. I was forced into early retirement after a mental evaluation. But I know what I saw, and I'm not the only one. Because in the years that followed, 2 other officers went missing near the Lockwood property. And every year on October 11th, the 911 line gets a call. Same voice, same words. They're watching me. They live in the walls, and still no one dares answer. If you ever hear a call in the night, if the phone rings and no one's there, ask yourself, what if the house is calling you? Subscribe to Dark Nexus Tales, where real nightmares come to life. Comment below, would you enter the house for a stranger's 911 call or leave it ringing forever? If that first story gave you chills, now's the time to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and drop a comment telling us which moment creeped you out the most. And don't forget to share it with a friend, because the next stories are about to get even darker. A true and unexplained police encounter. There are places inside jails that even the inmates fear. You think the guards would feel safe? We're trained, we have the keys, the radios, the backup. But some nights, none of that matters. Some nights, the jail itself becomes something else. This happened in October 2015. I was 3 years into my shift rotation at the Crescent County Correctional Facility, a mid-sized jail tucked away in a quiet corner of Oregon. It was an old structure, the kind with narrow hallways, leaky pipes, and yellowing brick that always seemed damp no matter how hot it got outside. The East Wing, where Cell Block 6 is located, hadn't been used in over a decade. That part of the building was shut off due to failing infrastructure and reports of unexplained electrical issues. Lights shorting out, cameras freezing. Officers joked that it was haunted, but even the jokes didn't go far. No one volunteered for night patrols anywhere near it. But in October of that year, the main block flooded after a pipe burst, forcing us to temporarily reopen Cell Block 6 for backup inmate overflow. Most of the guys weren't happy about it. That wing felt? Still, we were professionals. Orders were orders. That night, I was on graveyard duty with Officer Matthew Brennan, a serious, no-nonsense guy. Ex-military, the kind of man who doesn't scare easy. He'd work death scenes, he'd kick down meth lab doors. But even he hesitated when we were told to rotate through the East Wing. "Let's get it over with," he said, in and out. We entered Cell Block 6 just after 2 a.m. The hallway was longer than I remembered. Rows of rusted cell doors stretched ahead. The lights flickered dimly, buzzing like hornets. My boots echoed on the concrete as we walked past cell after cell, most of them empty, except for 1 or 2 holding low-level transfers sleeping in silence. There was a weight in the air, thick and pressing, like the air itself was trying to push us out. Brennan stopped walking. "You hear that?" At first I didn't, then I did, giggling. Faint, high-pitched, like a little girl laughing behind a wall. We followed the sound to the last cell at the end of the row, SIF, a cell that had supposedly been sealed since 2006. But that night, the door was open, not swinging, not damaged, just slightly ajar. A cold gust hit us as we approached. My flashlight flickered once. Brennan whispered, "This cell was locked earlier." We stepped inside cautiously. The inside was colder than the hallway. My breath was visible in the beam of my flashlight. The walls were covered in old, faded drawings, childlike sketches scratched into the paint. Stick figures with crosses for eyes, a crude drawing of a man hanging from the ceiling, and in the far left corner, something crouched. A black human-sized shape hunched over, its back facing us. "Hey!" I called. "Stand up! Face us!" No response. Just a low, clicking noise. Brennan stepped forward. That's when the shadow turned its head. It didn't have a face. Just a smooth, empty stretch of skin. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just darkness. Then everything went wrong. The lights burst, literally exploded above us. The door slammed shut with a metal clang. My flashlight died. My ears rang from a sudden high-pitched tone, like a scream inside my skull. And when I turned to Brennan, he was gone. No struggle, no scream, just gone. I called his name, over and over, slammed on the door, tried my radio, nothing but static. Finally, the door creaked open on its own. The hallway outside was different now, longer, darker. It felt stretched, warped. I ran, back through the corridor, past the now empty cells. No inmates, no sound, just flickering lights and that same laugh behind me. When I reached the central security hub, the guards looked confused. "Where the hell have you been?" one asked. "It's almost 7 a.m. I checked my watch. It had stopped at 2:18 a.m. What happened after? Officer Brennan was never found. Internal investigation labeled it unexplained disappearance. But those of us who were there know better. The radio footage? Static. The hallway camera? Cut out exactly at 2:16 a.m. The only still image recovered showed Brennan standing in front of cell 6F and something behind him. Tall, black, reaching. The jail permanently sealed off cell block 6, welded the doors, even bricked up the hallway. But still, guards report hearing his voice over the radio sometimes, late at night. Same words every time. "I'm still in here. Don't let it out." Dark Nexus Tales outro. Some prisoners never leave. Some cells never forget. If you ever hear a voice behind a locked door, don't answer. Because it may not be someone trapped inside, it might be something waiting to get out. Subscribe to Dark Nexus Tales, where true stories meet the unknown. Tell us in the comments, would you investigate cell 6F? A disturbing true encounter they tried to erase. There's a kind of silence you only hear during snowstorms. That thick, suffocating quiet where the air feels heavier than usual. That's what it was like the night of December 14th, 2017, when I was working alone at Red Pine Police Station in northern Montana. Population under 400. Officers on duty that night, just me. My partner, Officer Leach, had gone out to assist a stranded car on the icy back highway. I wasn't worried. We handled worse. Most nights I made coffee, filled out reports, monitored the radio, and maybe checked on the drunk tank once or twice. But that night started changing the moment the snow got heavier. By 1:45 a.m., the power flickered. At 2:06 a.m., the lobby phone rang. I answered instinctively, but what I heard wasn't right. No voice, no static, just a deep, wet breathing. Not like asthma, not like someone gasping. It was deliberate, hungry. "Red Pine Station," I said, voice tight. "Can you hear me?" Silence. Then a whisper so slow, so sharp it made my teeth hurt. "Downstairs." Click. I stared at the receiver in my hand for nearly a full minute before setting it down. Now here's the problem. Red Pine Station didn't have a downstairs, at least not one anyone ever talked about. We had blueprints, floor plans, safety maps. Nothing below the main floor. No basement, no storage level, nothing. Still, something in my gut told me that call came from inside the building. I stood up. I hadn't even realized the lights were dimmer. My monitor screens were frozen, camera feeds blinking erratically. Every hallway looked darker than it should have. The heater had gone off. I could see my own breath. Then I noticed it. The back hallway near the old evidence room. Its door was wide open. That door had been sealed shut for years. After a fire in 2008, it was declared unsafe. Everyone knew it. Everyone avoided it. But now it looked as if someone had forced it open from the inside. I should have radioed Leach, but something in my body moved without thinking. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped inside. The evidence room was colder than outside. My boots crunched on broken glass and rat bones. Cobwebs clung to my jacket. On the shelves, I could still see old case boxes, each marked with thick black X's. Most were from cases that were never solved. Murders, missing children. One marked Jane Doe, 1992, no head. But that wasn't what stopped me. In the far corner of the room, behind a pile of torn insulation and burnt shelving, was a trap door, wooden, rotting, partially open. And from it came a slow, rhythmic drip, like something leaking below, something wet. That's when I heard the second voice. This one, inside my head. Not spoken, not whispered, implanted. "We're still down here." I should have run, but I dropped to my knees and opened the trapdoor all the way. A cold blast of air hit me. My flashlight flickered. Steps led down into darkness. The stairs weren't wood. They were stone, slick with old water and mold. I descended slowly, counting each breath like it might be my last. 10 steps, 20, 30. By now, I had passed below the building's foundation. I could hear faint voices, some crying, some laughing, some chanting. And then I saw it. A single underground cell built into dirt and rock. Rusted iron bars sealed it. Behind them, in the flickering beam of my light, sat a figure, slouched in a wooden chair, pale skin like melted wax, hair matted and wet. Its head was down. I said, "Who are you?" It slowly raised its head, but the face was wrong. No mouth, no nose, just eyes. Wide, bloodshot, and black. And they were locked directly on me. Then, with a gurgling sound, it stood. I heard chains drag across the floor, but when I looked down, it wasn't chained. The sound was coming from inside my own ears. "You let me out," it said. "Now, take my place." The escape, I ran, stumbling up the stairs, dropping my flashlight. The air behind me grew hotter, then colder, then silent, completely silent. When I got back to the evidence room, it wasn't there. No room, no trapdoor, just 4 smooth concrete walls, like the entire section of the station had been erased. What happened after? They found me at 4:17 a.m., lying on the lobby floor, blood on my shirt, but no wounds. My boots were soaked in black water. My report was dismissed. The official story: psychological breakdown due to isolation and weather stress. But Leach told me something off record a week later. He had checked the original blueprints of Red Pine, going back to 1954. There was a basement, a small cell chamber used for off-the-books interrogations during the Cold War. It was sealed after 3 officers went missing. All of them took a call from the lobby phone. All of them were told, downstairs. Dark Nexus Tales Outrow. If a phone rings in the night and no one's there but the silence, don't answer, because sometimes the call isn't coming from outside. It's the station itself asking for someone new. Subscribe to Dark Nexus Tales for stories that were never meant to surface. Tell us in the comments, would you go down into the darkness if the voice knew your name? Some calls stay with you, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't supposed to answer. This happened in October 2020 during my 5th year as a night shift officer at Durham County Detention Facility in Tennessee. A high-security prison, double fences, electronic locks, monitored 24/7. Nothing ever really happened there until the night 437 disappeared from cell 13. He wasn't just any inmate. His real name wasn't on file. He'd been transferred from out of state, and every document we had on him was redacted. His ID photo had no eyes, just a black blur where the face should have been. The other inmates called him the Echo. Said he never ate, never slept, just stood in his cell, staring at the corner like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. On October 11th, 2 a.m., I was monitoring the lower wing when the security alert flashed red on cell 13. Motion detected, but the camera feed? Blank, just static. I radioed dispatch. Unit 4 requesting visual on cell 13. No image, no response. Then my radio crackled loudly, and I heard my own voice answer back. "Copy that, Unit 4, approaching now." But I wasn't speaking. I froze. Static again. Then another voice, not mine. "He's not in the cell anymore." I turned to the hallway monitor. The door to cell 13 was wide open. I grabbed my keys, my flashlight, and rushed down. The air was off. It smelled like burnt electronics and moved few steps. My radio buzzed every few steps, but no control room, no partner, no backup. When I reached cell 13, I found the door open just as I'd seen on the monitor. Inside, empty. But the walls, they were covered in black smudges, handprints, hundreds of them. And on the floor, the inmate's ID badge, half melted, like it had been burned with acid. Then I noticed it. My radio was on again, but no one was pressing the button. And from it came a whisper. "You hear them too now, don't you?" I dropped the radio. Suddenly, cell 12's door slammed shut. I turned, flashlight shaking, and saw a figure standing behind the glass of cell 12. But here's the thing. That cell had been empty for 6 months. I slowly approached. The figure didn't move, just stood with its head tilted. Too tall, too thin. Its hands were pressed to the glass, but backwards, palms facing outward, thumbs on the wrong side. Then the intercom crackled again. This time a voice whispered my name, my full name, middle name included. I had never told anyone that. The blackout. The entire lower wing went dark. Every light, every camera, every door, except cell 13. That one door remained open, and from the darkness inside I heard multiple voices whispering in sync. "You opened it. We were waiting. You're next." I ran. I don't even remember how I got back upstairs. When I reached the control room, no one was there. Not the guards, not the dispatcher, not even the tech on shift, but all the screens were on. All of them showing me standing in cell 13. What happened after? I resigned 2 weeks later. They wrote it off as mental fatigue. But I know what happened. That inmate didn't escape. He was never a prisoner. He was a beacon, a conduit. Something had been waiting in that cell, maybe for years, maybe longer. They closed cell 13 permanently, welded the door shut. But the other inmates, they say you can still hear his voice on the intercom at night, calling the guards, mimicking their voices, whispering things only they know. One rookie said he heard his mom's voice through the wall lock. She's been dead for 8 years. If your radio ever answers before you speak, if a cell door opens that shouldn't exist, don't go in. Because some voices don't echo back, they reach through. Subscribe to Dark Nexus Tales for the stories they erased from the logs. Tell us in the comments, if your radio whispered your name, would you answer back?